In reflecting on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, realize how long this has been a reality in history, 1945 to today. The background of the nuclear weapons is that by the end of Second World War, there was the effort to develop the atomic bomb by the United States. There was fear the Soviets were trying to do the same. Well, Germany trying to do the same. And so there was a rush to develop that bomb, a weapon never seen before, and to even use it to end the war. But early in 1945, by spring, Japan had secretly sent a communique that it was ready to talk about surrender. But the U.S. government kept that a secret. There was the story going around that a final invasion, against the Axis would take 1 million American lives in that horrible kind of a struggle. And in fact, when the bomb was dropped, that was the rationale. It saved 1 million American lives. That is a lie, a deliberate lie by those in government. And the reason for this was there was concern about the Soviet Union at the end of the Second World War. What would its power be? It was an ally coming from the East, defeating Germany and Japan. And the U.S. wanted to carve up the world post-World War II and be the power in the world. So the story of not needing the atomic bomb because Japan was putting out feelings for surrender. It developed the atomic bomb in the Trinity test site in the desert, and sure enough, it worked. By summertime, it worked. And there was the announcement that we had this bomb and that there was no sense publicly of any attempt by Japan to surrender. And so we ended up dropping the bomb. 2 cities were chosen as an experiment. We wanted 2 cities not already devastated by war. And Hiroshima and Nagasaki were 2 such cities. So the first bomb, Hiroshima, in August 6th, 1945. And then August 9th was Nagasaki. George Zabelka, a friend of mine, Father George Zabelka, was really ministering to the Enola Gay crew in the Army. He was a chaplain. And he blessed the crew going on a mission. And they did not know what the mission was until they were in the air heading toward Hiroshima. They dropped that bomb. And then, as I say, days later, Nagasaki. The bomb, those 2 bombs killed between 129 to 225,000 people, and then killing thousands more, and many dying over weeks, months, years later from the radiation. It was devastating. Both bombs were devastating. Survivors of those cities, called Hibakusha, have a common experience that it so destroyed their reality, their life, their world. No buildings around, fire and flames and burning and people screaming in pain and crawling over dead bodies, people trying to flee. It was a horrendous trauma. It was something of a transcendental experience for Hibakusha that did something to them. And rather than growing in hate or rage at those who did this, there was the sense of transcendence whereby, so horrendous, they don't want anyone to have to suffer that. They don't want anyone to ever use a nuclear weapon. And so it became a mission for many of them to the world. No, get rid of these weapons. So part of it was an experiment. What can these bombs do for the future? Because the arms race began after the Second World War ended, and the two superpowers then were in a new kind of mortal, ongoing combat called the Cold War. And what we did was not work toward nuclear disarmament, but developing more and more, creating the arms race. The U.S. had many more such weapons than the Soviet Union at the end of the Second World War. There's a myth that it was this powerful nation. It did not equal the U.S. That's part of the lie fed to people also by government. And so the Cold War evolved, developing more and more nuclear weapons. And a big piece of it too is that it is profitable. Making nuclear weapons and deploying, maintaining them is extremely profitable for major corporations that make such weaponry. And so on and on in a crazy fashion, tremendous expense of developing, expanding our war-making capacities and nuclear weapons. And so the Soviet Union was trying to play catch-up. 1953, it had its atomic bomb, and then thermonuclear weapons, thousands of times the power of the atomic bomb, which was equivalent to 13,000 pounds of TNT, one atomic bomb. And so it goes on and on. And the Cold War developed the idea of MAD, mutual assured destruction. The idea was it is insane to even attack the other. And so it would be a deterrent. Neither side would actually use these weapons. That was the strategic thinking expressed. Yet, the U.S. kept working toward developing the capacity of first strike nuclear weapons in the Cold War. That is, the ability to launch an unexpected nuclear war doing destruction, and our defense system could block the retaliation by the Soviets, blocking those missiles before they got very far. That's the madness of this whole thing. And as I say, extremely profitable. Today, the arms race is such that we're spending over $700 billion a year on defense and over $300 billion a year in developing new strategic nuclear weapons and maintaining a new nuclear force. It's insane. And including small nuclear weapons. They are even more dangerous because we're more likely to use those. But the experts are indicating, and have all these decades, that if you have the use of some nuclear weapons, there will be some retaliation. And that could create the nuclear winter, the nuclear holocaust. A winter where the debris would cover the sky and we might not see sun for perhaps a year. And it would destroy much life on Earth, maybe the human race. Insanity, but this is what we continue. Now, arms agreements reached included the intent to work toward mutual nuclear disarmament. We signed that treaty with the Soviet Union, but there's never been any intent to do any such thing. That's a lie. But the intent is to keep developing and keep other countries from developing nuclear weapons, because we are empire, hegemony. We are to have the control. We are not to allow any other equal nuclear power. That's the strategy of the United States government. And so this is insane. Now, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists this year have said they do great research. They've indicated we have three, what we could call existential threats to the human race and the earth. One is environmental destruction, Holocaust. Number two, the use of nuclear weapons that would bring on that Holocaust. And that is not just possible, some say it's probable that it's been a miracle. It hasn't happened before this. The accidental or deliberate use of nuclear weapons with the following retaliation, madness. And the third existential crisis is the growing destruction of democracy around the world. And so where we're at today, 2021, we celebrate Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Wow. I have experience with this whole thing of working toward nuclear disarmament. For nearly 20 years, I was part of groups I helped create working on elimination of nuclear weapons and going to air bases that had nuclear weapons on the B-52 and then the B-1 bombers, and doing civil disobedience, education, blocking entrances in, and challenging the insanity. And that means court time, making that a forum for education, jail time, prison time, been through it all. And still, the craziness goes on. ICANN, the marvelous organization that won the Nobel Peace Prize approximately 3 years ago, has been influential in working toward this, working toward dismantling the craziness of our nuclear weapons. But the Russia today and the U.S. each have approximately 1,500 nuclear weapons. The insanity of it all. So what can we do? Each of us should feel a responsibility to be doing what we can. We can say our planet, our human race, depends on getting rid of these weapons because the probability increases with time. They are going to be used accidentally or deliberately. And so please get involved, do what you can to be dismantling this madness. Thank you.